It's always a pleasure to be with Carol. We had a real mutual friend we lost a few years ago, Bob Leonard. And Bob was one of my mentors when I came on the board of the NRA. And he certainly left us at an early age. I want to thank you for last night. It was wonderful. I've been to 4 of these in the last 4 or 5 months. And it ranks right. I wouldn't say it's the best, because if I say that, then I have left myself open. But let me tell you, it was super. Thank you for Joe Cato and our friend Don Fox over here for their service on the national board. Joe is, and we talked earlier about, in my tenure on the board, about 10 years, Joe is possibly the 5th with a Florida connection chairman of the board. And we went down the list, and Skip Sack, we're not sure if his Applebee's restaurants were in Florida, but Carol says they were. So there's the 5th right there since I have been on the board. So you have a very good footprint on the national scene. You need to understand, I've only been in this job for a total of 8 days. And my term really began January 1st. But like Joe will tell you, they give you a 2-year run-up. So my travel schedule in 2013 was not quite as bad as this year, but those 12 trips I made were in 2013. Just to give you some instance, I've been out twice already this week. She said I started as a cook. No, I started washing dishes. I was 10 years old. I was in my father's restaurant. And I started cooking at 14. I worked my way all the way through college from 19 to 23. Not only did I get a degree in economics, I managed a restaurant full time. And at the age of 23, I purchased the assets of a failing restaurant. I worked 7 days a week for 2.5 years without a day off. I took that footprint. Not only did I make it successful, I built 16 more just like it. In the meantime, somewhere in there, I had an opportunity to get married, and I also joined the Army Reserve, and they sent me to Cooks and Bakers School, and I cooked for the U.S. Army for 6 years. You have to have this industry in your blood, because if you don't, like I think Bill Shoemate said last night, if you don't stand a chance, because you work when other people play. And you found that out early on, because on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you worked. If you had a day off, it was Monday, and everybody else was back at work. So it was hard to get a golf partner, so I didn't play golf anyway then. But I certainly am glad to talk to you today about our industry that defined my career. We believe at the NRA that we can never lose sight of the big picture. When we're talking about an industry, we're talking about a very large part of the national economy. Nationwide, we did in the food service sector, and I heard a different number from Carol, and I'll give that, $660 billion last year, 2013. And that came up to 4% of the U.S. gross domestic product. And Florida came in with 10% of that number. Now just stop and think, 10% of the restaurant sales in the United States came through this state. The job industry in the food service sector has outpaced the national economy in the last 14 consecutive years. And ladies and gentlemen, we get no respect. We're a group of hamburger flippers. In the United States, the food service industry employs 13.1 million Americans, and I heard today you employ 1 million of those, and that's good. That's 10% of the U.S. workforce. Half of the adults in the United States have worked in the food service industry at one time or another. 1 out of 4 first jobs is in our sector. You know, we're the ones that take the untrained, unskilled. We teach them responsibilities. We teach them how to show up on time. And we move them into, as Joe said in the PAC meeting, and we move them into middle class. We move them into those wage groups with or without a college degree. Everyone has a favorite restaurant to go to. Even my 6-year-old has one. It's not mine. I don't serve mac and cheese, and that's her deal. But not everyone looks at the big picture. We have to change that perception of what we do. Not only here in the streets in Tallahassee, we have to change it in Washington, D.C., and the media worldwide. Have you noticed some of the positive press that the NRA has been getting recently in your segment? I said earlier, we don't get any respect. But we're getting a higher profile position on those things that concern our industry. And Catherine mentioned them: health care, minimum wage, and immigration. Somebody up there is listening. I had, in this travel deal, if you travel like I do, you get stuck. You get someplace you're not supposed to be. Or I went to Washington, D.C. yesterday to come back south to Florida. But one good thing came out of that being stuck. I spent 2 hours in the U.S. Air Lounge with my congressman. And 2 hours I got to talk to my congressman. And I want you to know, on Monday I was in D.C. and I met with Scott DeFife, our Senior VP of Political Affairs. And Scott and the congressman were in agreement. Couldn't believe it. And here you have a real strong Democrat over here, and here you have a real strong Republican. So yeah, there's some things that we can do. On the health care law, I guess some of you know what the Rubicon is. It's that little 14-mile river in northern Italy that Julius Caesar crossed. But it means there is a point of no return. Because once you get in an airplane so far that you don't have enough fuel to get back, you've crossed the Rubicon. The health care has crossed the Rubicon. It will not be undone. So what we're going to have to do is to figure out a way to make it work for us. The 40-hour work week, both. Everybody says it's one of those chips on the table. They just have to wait to see where it's played. But in our industry, in the food service sector, moving the 30 to 40 would make a world of difference. It really would help us all. There was a calculation last year that how you determine a large employer, small employer, if you remember that calculation. Very complicated. We think that there's a possibility we can get part of that changed. There was an auto-enroll provision in there that people with 200 employees or more were automatically enrolled, and we felt like it was redundant, and there's some possibility we can get that changed. Well, last summer in July, we won a small victory. We got them to put it off a year. But a year from now, we've got the same problem. They just need to fix the problem. You need to communicate with your legislators. And let me stop and say, Carol's a great lady. Catherine's a great lady. They're hired guns, okay? That's their job. Dawn Sweeney, she's a hired gun. I told her that Monday, and she understands. Where you get respect is you. I'm a volunteer like you are. And your legislators know who you are. You're their constituents. They eat in your restaurants. Have the one-on-one time. But it's going to be up to you. She can't hire enough. What's her husband's name? David Lugar, who's a lobbyist, and the Scott DeFifes and the rest of the world, to really get it done. Yeah, they can work on the regulations, and they can smooth the edges and this and that and the other. But trust me, it's you that can make a difference. Another hot button item is immigration. And let me just briefly say that we can't run our business without employees. It just doesn't work. I closed 2 restaurants in Virginia a lot of years ago because I wound up hiring people I wouldn't previously call in for a second interview, and they were on my staff. And I owned the real estate, and I said, I'm not going to do this. So I sold the problems to somebody else. But we need legal employees. We need an e-verify system that works. And at the same time, so important in Florida, to allow foreign travelers to visit our country. I'll give you two examples. A lady from England I met not long ago, she said, we used to spend a month every year in Arizona. We don't go anymore because of the travel stuff. Okay? That's a month. I had a chance last year to go to Argentina, and I went through the visa stuff, and I said, what in the world is all that? And they said, oh, we're just copying yours. Okay? So there was two incidents that I saw it, she saw it, and we've got to allow, what was it, 91 million that you said, foreign travelers come to the state of Florida. It's very important to you. It's a very important thing for us. We still have some hope for this Congress. I'm not sure they got hope for themselves, but we've got some hope that we can get a few things done. You know, 2014, the midterm, is probably the most defining election that we'll have in American politics in my lifetime. There is a nationwide effort going on to discredit the food service industry. And you've seen it. It was in April 29th, I think, and then again in December 3rd that these protests broke out in so many cities across the United States. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is not food service workers doing this. This is paid protesters. Well, when they did it on December 3rd, they didn't have quite the clout they did on August 29th, because at that time, the media started saying, oh, these are paid union people. They have no ties with the food service industry, and so they sort of went away. But that national movement's out there, not only to show the public, but to divide our industry. To have certain segments, the fast food and this and that and the other, the leisure dining, split. It's not going to work. Both Catherine mentioned and Carol, please put April 29th and 30th on your calendar. It is called the Public Affairs Conference, and as Catherine said, in 2015 it will be a joint Public Affairs Conference. But let me tell you a little bit about it. I took my wife a lot of years ago, and she said, oh, the day we went to Capitol Hill, she said, oh, I'm going to Nordstrom's at Pentagon City. I said, no, you're not. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, I signed you up to go to our Capitol Hill visit. She said, I don't do that. I said, listen, you don't understand. The North Carolina delegation, I only have 2 women in the whole organization that could come. And we have much more on the board. But I said, and I'm sending 3 teams out. And I'm not sending a team out with all males. Oh, well, she loved it. So now we go. It's on her calendar. She's there. I will assure you that if you go, and you had never been to one before, you'll go the following year. We had almost 600 restaurateurs walk in the halls of Congress last year. It just sort of keeps building on it, and it keeps growing, and everybody that comes wants to come back, and they encourage people to come. And I'm going to leave you in just a second, but let me just say this. I am on the board 10 years, and the state associations and the national board 10 years ago didn't gee-haw real well. They didn't get along. Nobody trusted anybody. And I want you to know, for one, I have worked for 10 years to ensure the national organization that our state associations are what makes us. You're independents, for the most part. You're not the big chains. You're the people who are our feet on the ground. You're the ones in the state of Florida that can make things happen or not make them. You communicate with each other, and it's not always been that way. Well, thank you again for inviting me to Florida. I'm going to run catch a plane like I normally do, but if you have any questions, pass them along to Carol, and certainly enjoyed being here. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's all.
Sean, yeah.